Low Country Live.
We're calling it the calm before the storm. Good morning. 2 new looks for you, all new this hour.
A first video shows waves up in Garden City. The second, scenic view over at Breach Inlet here in the Low Country. Charleston County officials holding a press conference at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We'll, of course, bring that to you live on air as well as online.
The water's looking very active right there. Now let's bring in meteorologist Emily Gracie. We've had some changes here in the past few minutes. She's been tracking this hurricane from the beginning.
And we just got some kind of an update on our watches, correct?
Yeah, we did get some updates, and we just got the 10 a.m. update here on the location as well, because as it inches closer to the coastline, we're going to keep getting these updates much more quickly as far as the location of the storm. And right now, we're still looking at a Category 2 hurricane, so that's down from where it was yesterday. The winds are at 110 miles per hour, still a very large and very dangerous hurricane. It's moving to the northwest, and it has slowed down, so we were expecting this slowing movement. It has not shifted more westerly yet. When that happens, Charleston becomes more of a risk, and for now still moving to the northwest, 160 miles east-southeast of Wilmington at this time. And as it continues to slow down, we're expecting that landfall, but not until later tonight or potentially even tomorrow morning. So this is a longer term event. This is not something that will be in and out of here in a few hours. Take a look at the latest track from the Hurricane Center. Brings it on shore in southern portions of North Carolina as a Category 2 hurricane. That would happen, like I said, either late tonight or early tomorrow morning. After that, it moves onshore, potentially weakening pretty quickly to a Category 1 or even a tropical storm. Now notice the slowing movement. This now at this point is getting into Saturday morning, and it is still in South Carolina. So it's that turn more south and west that we are concerned with. Some computer models do bring it as a much sharper turn and brings it down the coast towards Charleston. That would not be good news for us. As it is right now, our impacts would still be felt here in the Low Country, just not quite as intense as impacts farther north. And at this point, as it moves through the state slowly and weakens, winds are still a factor, but not as much of a factor. It's really at that point about the rainfall and the slow forward motion and exactly how much rain could fall along this system and north of this system. So some new watches and warnings to tell you about. We are still under a hurricane watch here in Charleston. That has not been changed at all. We have been under that hurricane watch for Charleston and Berkeley County. Farther to our north, they are still under a hurricane warning. That's Georgetown County, Horry County, and most of North Carolina. New, though, in the past couple of hours is this tropical storm warning. And that's for those counties a little bit farther inland, including Florence County. Also tropical storm watches even farther inland. What this tells me is that the Weather Service is picking up on this, that they think it's going to take that more northerly track, and those are counties that could be impacted by some of those winds as it does move inland. So what is not necessarily good news for those folks could mean better news for us. It's pretty quiet out there right now, though. Looking at the radar satellite imagery, it's not raining yet, and we're barely getting any cloud cover, but as I zoom the picture out, you will see here, there it is, Hurricane Florence, a Category 2 hurricane bearing down on North Carolina with impacts already being felt along the coastline. In fact, they are under a tornado watch for portions of the state as those outer bands are now starting to move onshore, and with landfall not expected until later tonight or tomorrow morning. We're talking about a long ways to go before they are completely done with this, and we are just getting started. I'm going to tell you the timeline on our impacts, exactly who's going to feel what and what those impacts could be. That's coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Ed, thank you. And don't forget, the lane reversal on I-26 will come to an end tonight at 6 p.m. Highway Patrol flush cars will start the process at the 526 interchange. They'll then slowly open up each exit on the eastbound side of the interstate until they reach I-77 in Columbia. After that, traffic will be allowed to flow eastbound once again. The process in all expected to take about 4 hours.
Well, businesses and homes in downtown Charleston are boarding up ahead of Florence's arrival. Brody Hart took a trip there to check out the scene for us. Brody, how are things looking down on the Battery?
Yeah, Tessa, so it really has kind of been a tale of two cities this morning. So on the one hand, you had a lot of people out and about. We're out on the Battery this morning, and there have been hundreds of people all morning long walking up on the Battery wall. You can see them right now. Some people have their dogs, some have their morning coffee. What's going on, guys? Good morning. So then you've got people kind of in the distance just kind of hanging out in White Point Gardens here as well. So you've got that going on. But then earlier this morning, we drove around and we saw all kinds of restaurants, buildings, and homes boarded up in downtown Charleston. They had all their sandbags out in front of their doors, and city officials told us people filled up 53,000 pounds, or I should say 53,000 bags of sand And a lot of places, though, they're closed today. City services, a lot of them are suspended for the next few days. And we saw a group of guys running around downtown earlier this morning that said they do it every day, and they're not going to let this storm stop them now.
We'll go for a run. Some of my good buds over here. We get out early and exercise. There's some houses downtown. Some of the businesses are boarded up. We'll head down there shortly to go see some more, I'm sure. There's some houses in the communities. I live over on Johns Island near the Angel Oak, and some of the houses are getting a little nervous.
Yeah, now at this point the city is still at OPCON 1. What that means, that's the highest level of readiness. Despite this beautiful day outside, I want to bring our shot back out here live and show you one of the real iconic homes here along the Battery. It's all boarded up from first floor, second floor. As we push to the right a little bit, there's a home in between it, kind of further back on the lot. It's also boarded up, and then you've got that pink house just to my right a little bit that's also boarded up. Now it's under construction, doesn't look like anybody's living there right now, but still, homeowners not taking any chances down here. But it's just kind of funny, like I said, it's kind of a couple different opinions here. You've got people that have boarded their houses up and gotten out of here, and then you've got, like I said, a lot of people just walking around downtown this morning not worried at all about this storm. So potentially some underestimating what we're going to get later this week, into the weekend. We're just going to kind of have to wait and see what happens when this storm makes landfall. But we're live downtown this morning. Destin and John, I'll get it back to you.
Different strokes, different folks. Thank you, Brody. Our neighbors to the north, though, could be dealt a serious blow as early as today. Dan Lamparello planted his feet in the sand on Myrtle Beach this morning. He's providing us an update on the conditions there new this morning.
We're only a few hours away from when Myrtle Beach could start feeling the first impacts of Hurricane Florence. This otherwise tourist community is now a complete ghost town. A lot of the people getting out ahead of the storm. But one of the most eerie images out of this is the iconic Skywheel up here, completely empty. They took all the glass gondolas off over the past few days ahead of this storm to prep. But we're told the Skywheel can withstand winds of 150 miles per hour, so they're not taking any chances either way. And neither do the businesses here in Myrtle Beach. A lot of them shuttering over the past few days. This one here, though, completely wide open to the elements, the full force of Florence, if you will. The next business down, though, they have boards up, they have sandbags down. All of the businesses had to be closed by 5 p.m. last night. That was according to city government here. Most of them did do that, but there are still a few stragglers making those last-minute preparations. There's going to be a curfew. Safety is a big undertaking here in the city, and that's why they're going to have the curfew in tonight. It was in last night and again tonight. So they're going to make sure that the streets are closed and safe ahead of this storm. We'll continue to update you here and online. In Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, I'm Dan Lamparello reporting.
Well, closer to home, access to Folly Beach was restricted last night. Only homeowners, essential business, employees, and contractors will be allowed in. Ben Garbaric is live there now tracking that operation.
Yeah, there's a police checkpoint just to get onto Folly Beach at this point. And take a look at some of the waves out here. These waves are noticeably larger than what we saw here yesterday. We'll show you some video we shot earlier. There's road closures all over the place. Many of the stores, restaurants, and other homes along Folly Beach are all boarded up ahead of this storm. There really are not a lot of people who are still here. It looks like most of the people are following some of those evacuation orders. Obviously, Florence is not here quite yet, but these larger waves that we are seeing are just proof that Florence is on its way. Live at Folly Beach, I'm Ben Garber, ABC News 4.
Ben, thank you. There are still a few stores open around town, believe it or not. Target and Publix are also operating at normal business hours until further notice. And if you need to make a trip to Lowe's, the one near Northwoods Mall is ready to serve you. They say they have sandbags, but you might want to get there quickly. The store is set to close at noon.
You said Waffle House is open too, right?
Waffle House is open, yeah.
Boom. Coming up, safety first. High Patrol joining us live in studio. Trooper Bob Bears discussing safety measures ahead of Florence's arrival.
And take a look at the winds out there right now. It's starting to pick up in speed here in Charleston. We have a north-north winds at 16 miles per hour. I'll let you know how strong those winds could get at the peak of the storm. That's after the break. green mic? What'd they say? Is the sports mic up there?
How low can you go? John said the gym's closed because he knows that.
No. I'll just give him the green.
He knows that working out is an incredible feeling.
All right. Your job. Let's see. Take a live look outside right now. No, this is not off our coastline. This is the Outer Banks. Look at those winds whipping around. Those outer bands now starting to move onshore near the Outer Banks and eastern North Carolina as Florence is approaching, but still over 100 miles away. So that goes to show you exactly the size of this thing. That center of circulation, those hurricane force winds, they extend out 80 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds extend out nearly 200 miles from the center. So this thing is huge, and the effects are going to be felt for quite a wide area of people, including here in the Low Country. In fact, we're already getting breezy conditions out there right now, and the clouds are rolling in, but it's going to be a while before we really start to feel those impacts, especially as far as rainfall. Eastern North Carolina right now under a tornado watch, all those areas shaded in the red. Now, we've talked about tornadoes during hurricanes, and that's something that typically happens in one particular sector of the hurricane, and that's not a sector we're going to be in. So that's one thing we don't have to worry about. Tornadoes are not going to be an issue like they were for Irma. However, we have some other issues. I want to show you exactly the size here of this thing and how far away it is. It's still quite far from Charleston, and it is still taking that northwest path at this time. So it's not really getting closer to us right now. It's actually kind of stayed pretty much the same distance away, about 250 to 275 miles away from us. But like I said, those tropical storm force winds, if they're out 200 miles from the center, it is going to get windy here, and it's going to get windy later today. So I want to show you the timeline here and what to expect and when. And bear in mind, this is one particular computer model, and we've looked at so many runs of so many different computer models with this thing to try to determine what's going to happen. And they've actually been really good up until that point of landfall. So we're watching as it makes landfall, which will likely happen later tonight or early tomorrow morning. So you notice there's that much slower forward speed. So when these things slow down, sometimes they weaken, but it also means they get bigger and they dump rain on areas. So flooding rain is a huge concern with this, and some portions of North Carolina could get more than 15, maybe even 20 inches of rain before it's all said and done. So it moves onshore, expected to kind of take this westerly, southwesterly path once it does move onshore, which would bring it into the state of South Carolina, but not bring a direct hit to Charleston. So that's what we're looking at right now. One computer model run does bring it down the coastline of Charleston, but that's one. out of many. So we're kind of putting that one aside. It's not completely off the table, but it's something we're kind of putting aside for now. We're going to go with this one particular track, which does bring it through the center of the state. And that's why we've got those warnings now in place for some of those inland counties for tropical storm warnings. Now notice as we go in towards Friday night, this is tomorrow night, flooding rain really starting to move into a huge chunk of the state, including the low country. Now by Saturday, it's just not moving too quickly. This is Saturday at 9 a.m. and it looks like it's barely moved at all at that point. So those flooding rains continuing for a huge portion of the state, not only through Saturday, but potentially into Sunday as well. As far as the winds, that's going to be our first concern. So we're going to get the wind first and then the rain will come after that, which is good. It's better than the other way around. So as we go through today, those winds are going to pick up in speed, and by later on this evening, they'll probably be a little bit breezy to even windy overnight tonight. So this is 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. We've got winds gusting up to about 25 miles per hour, potentially even 30, but places like Georgetown at that point gusting up to about 40 miles per hour. Now, once we get into kind of the thick of things, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, and tomorrow night, that's when it gets really windy. But notice where those winds are coming from. They're coming from the northwest. So we're not worried about storm surge as much either. It's the freshwater flooding we're worried about and those winds. So this is 2 p.m. tomorrow. We've got a 55-mile-per-hour wind gust in Georgetown, getting close to tropical storm wind gust here. And then they do exceed that by about early Saturday morning. You can see that center of circulation just starting to move through the state at that point. And those winds will stay pretty elevated through the day on Saturday as well. So tomorrow, a windy day, Saturday, a windy and rainy day, and then the rain could continue into Sunday as well. As far as tropical storm force winds, looking pretty likely for portions of the low country, especially north of town. So those areas shaded in purple, that's the kind of certainty for tropical storm force winds and above. And then as we go through the weekend, that's still a pretty high likelihood for Charleston, about a 70, potentially even 80% chance that much of the low country will experience those winds over 39 miles per hour. So as far as the rainfall totals, that's something we've been really concerned with as well. And it looks like we should see anywhere from about 4 to 8 inches with the track as it is right now. But there are going to be isolated areas that do get a lot more than that. In fact, some areas of the low country could get about 15 inches of rain. So we're going to watch for that. So our main concern here, the rain, the flooding rain. The wind is going to be a concern as well, especially if we do get those hurricane force wind gusts up over 74 miles per hour. Storm surge less of a concern, we'll say 1 to 3 feet, but really it would take a change in the track, I think, for that to be a huge issue. And of course, rough surf, beach erosion, already a concern out there. John?
All right, Em, thank you. Hundreds of thousands of people have already evacuated the Carolinas. Some people, though, say they're sticking it out. Right now, joining us live in studio, Trooper Bob Ayers of the South Carolina Highway Patrol. He's discussing road safety. Bob, thank you so much for being here. You've been up and down in Columbia a couple of times now, so what are you seeing out there on the roadways?
We're still seeing people evacuating. You might not just see everyone on Interstate 26, but there's several other routes out of the low country out to other areas of South Carolina that people are using.
And you said it was getting pretty busy out there on some of those roads.
Yeah, so I came back through Highway 176 yesterday from Columbia and saw several people on that route leaving.
Eastbound lanes still shut down. That's going to change, however, tonight at 6 o'clock. Walk us through that lane reversal.
Sure. So at 6 o'clock, the process begins. What you'll see is you'll see the flush cars there at 526 on Interstate 26 going westbound in the eastbound lane. So as they pass the interchanges, for example, Ashley Phosphate Road, they'll pull those cones up. DOT will pull those cones up out of the area, and then you can immediately get on Interstate I-26 eastbound. And then they'll go to Highway 78, pull the cones up, then that traffic can get on I-26 and head east. So it's going to take, we've closed down 100 miles of roadway, so it's going to take about 4 hours to entirely complete that process. But we're ready to do it.
You're going to get it done. I asked you this morning exactly why we're doing this lane reversal, and I thought it was, you know, maybe people leaving North Carolina wanted to come down here south out of the storm. You said it's actually for a different reason.
Well, you're looking at evacuating up to 1 million people, as they said, along the entire coast. So 501, that lane reversal will begin at noon today, and that'll take about 4 hours to do.
And you got to get all those cones out of there before the wind.
You got to get the cones before the wind comes, and also we have 666 personnel designated for this reversal, so those people will be used in other parts of this area for other reasons. Not our first rodeo, especially yours out there on the road. What lessons have you and the Highway Patrol learned in the last 3 years? We had a couple of storms plus that 1,000-year flood. Winter storms, it seems like every year we're back talking about lane reversals and hurricane preparation. You know, we prepare this every year. Every June we have this, and this is why we do it. So when it's time to execute it, it's done flawlessly. The 1,000-year flood. We saw what happened. We saw people going around barricades, needing to get rescued, and that's what we don't want in this case. So if the storm's over us, don't go out. Emily was talking about the winds and the rain. Don't go out there to get that picture, because the road you left on might not be passable on your way back. There might be a tree across it. It might be flooded out, and then you're not familiar with the area, and you might end up being the one that needs help.
And after the storm, of course, a lot of those roads going to be washed out. A lot of barriers going to be up. Don't drive around those either, right?
No, they can stick to this station, follow for updates. So we're constantly in contact with you, and we're going to make sure those roadways are safe before we let you drive on them.
All right, Trooper Bob Ayers of the Highway Patrol. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Be safe out there. We appreciate you being here. Much more after this.
Take a live look right now from Oak Island, North Carolina. Getting a little bit rough out there. The seas, the winds are picking up, and those outer bands of Florence are moving on shore near the Outer Banks. So already feeling those effects there in North Carolina as it is inching closer now, about 150 miles away from their coastline. So still quite a distance to go before that landfall happens. Let's take a look at our weather over the next several days, because we are expecting impacts that could last through the weekend. Today we're going to see some changes out there, clouding up a little bit more, small chance of rain, but I really think that'll hold off until tomorrow. And we're also going to get an increase in our winds. So getting a little breezy by later today. The winds will really pick up overnight tonight and during the day tomorrow. We'll call tomorrow a windy day. So tomorrow we'll start to feel those winds out there. And then into Saturday, we really start to get that rain coming in, and the rain could stick around into Sunday as well. In fact, a decent chance of rain going through the weekend, and it could be a flooding event, especially for areas to our north. So we're going to keep a close eye on that track. Any changes to this forecast we will let you know about. But for now, things should improve by early next week.
Well, after months of planning for that perfect day, Hurricane Florence has forced a couple to move their beach wedding from Wilmington to Asheville. Stephanie Santostasi has new reaction from the stormy couple.
Bride-to-be Kristen Wilson holds hands with her fiancé Michael Bizanzini as they sit on the back porch of their Asheville Airbnb. It's not the place this Chattanooga couple expected to be just days before saying I do.
Sunday was very emotional, thinking, okay, it might be months before we can get married now.
These engagement pictures taken by Trinity from Treebird Photography show the happy couple in one of their favorite places, Wilmington.
We fell in love with Wilmington, and we're really excited about just a small little white chapel.
That's where Kristen and Michael plan to get married this Saturday, but Hurricane Florence had different plans.
On Sunday, we decided to change plans and started looking for a backup.
And it's a good thing they did. Businesses in Wilmington already boarded up days before Florence is expected to make landfall.
We really just had to come to the conclusion that it just didn't look like it would be safe for anybody to travel.
With a lot of help from their friends and family, the couple rerouted everyone to Asheville for the weekend instead.
Somehow found, through some miracles, the All Souls Cathedral.
And the reception will be here at the Grand Bohemian Hotel in Biltmore Village.
So our photographer and DJ and then the videographer and the florist all had to evacuate anyway because of the storm, so they were willing to come. Still be our vendor, so we were really excited about that too.
Stephanie Santostasi there reporting. Kristen and Michael planned on coming here to Charleston for their honeymoon, but they've decided instead to go to Florida. Yeah, as for the down payments on the chapel and venue in Wilmington, they thankfully had insurance on everything and hoping to get back what they paid. That's being smart, you know. But we're working to keep you ahead of the storm. Much more on Florence's track and strength coming up in our next half hour. Stay with us.
bottom of the hour in this special report, starting this half hour off with new video out of North Carolina showing water slowly creeping up to a beach home in South Avon.
Wow, waves will be rough for as Florence makes landfall. But the question is, what impacts will we feel here at home? Let's bring in meteorologist Emily Gracie.
Let's do that. She's been tracking this hurricane from the beginning. It seems like it was 3 weeks, a month ago, and this thing knocking on our doorstep.
We've been talking about this since before it even existed. We said there's something that might come off the coast of Africa and be something, and here it is. That something. It is Hurricane Florence. We've gone through some ups and downs here. Now a Category 2 hurricane, and back here at home, we're starting to see some changes to our weather. So the clouds are rolling in, and it is getting a little bit breezy out there. Nothing too extreme yet, but as the next 24 hours goes on, we will notice some big differences in our weather. Right now, just a little bit of cloud cover, but things are mainly dry across the area. But we zoom out a little and we see there it is right there. Just a massive storm. It is Hurricane Florence, like I said, Category 2 with winds at 110 miles per hour. We've seen some differences here in the eye, some dry air coming in on the front side of this thing, but that eye starting to really form again. We've seen small changes in intensity here and there over the past 12 hours, but generally we are expecting a landfalling hurricane as a Category 2 somewhere along the coastline of North Carolina at this point. So we're not taking it off the table that it could move into South Carolina, but at this point it is looking like it will be a landfalling situation for North Carolina somewhere near Wilmington. Now that doesn't mean South Carolina is out of the woods. We do have impacts on the way. It is expected to slow down and turn towards South Carolina. So that's why we have concerns, and that's why we are tracking this very closely in the next 24 to 48 hours. Watch those outer bands starting to move on shore there near the outer banks of North Carolina. We've seen a tornado watch now in effect. Those tornadoes are going to be an issue on that side of the storm, but not on our side. So a little piece of good news in a very confusing forecast here. Tornadoes should not be an issue. So we did get an update here on the location at 10 a.m. It's 160 miles east-southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, and the winds are 110 miles per hour from that center of circulation. And those hurricane force winds are within anywhere between 74 miles per hour and 110 miles per hour. Those extend out about 80 miles from that center of circulation. So this thing is very big. Expected to stay a Category 2 as it approaches the coastline. That'll be sometime late tonight or early tomorrow morning. So we're not dealing with a major hurricane, but we are dealing with a big hurricane. Now, as we go in towards tomorrow night and Saturday, it should weaken to a tropical storm, but that's when we're expecting it to take that turn down into South Carolina. The faster it takes that turn, the more impacts we will feel here in Charleston. The slower it takes that turn, the more impacts will be felt in northern portions of the state and then also North Carolina through those inland areas. So we're keeping a close eye on that turn. Either way, it should weaken to a tropical depression by later this weekend, but it doesn't mean it's not going to continue to dump rain. So that's why we're concerned about the rainfall amounts. It's going to be a flooding event for someone. We just don't know exactly who yet. So the computer model is kind of lining up with that track from the Hurricane Center. Like I said, a couple of it bring them south, a couple of them still go rogue and bring it north, but the overall consensus is that it will get down into South Carolina, slow way down, and cause a lot of rain for a huge portion of the state. So we'll be tracking those rainfall totals, and I'll let you know what those winds are going to do. That's coming up in a bit.
All right, so businesses and homes downtown Charleston boarding up ahead of Florence's arrival. Brody Hart was there. He's been there since overnight, joining us now live from that scene. And Brody, you're actually seeing a lot of people out and about before the storm really hits here in the low country.
Yeah, John, that's right. So it is kind of strange. We've been seeing a lot of people walking around the Battery this morning, all morning long, really. But then you've got images like this. You've got these beautiful homes, these real iconic houses right beside the Battery that are all boarded up. They've got plywood over all the windows. And it's not just right here. We've really seen it all throughout downtown Charleston, and not just homes either. We had a lot of restaurants, a lot of businesses up on King Street, up on Meeting Street, that had their windows boarded up. They had sandbags right in front of their houses. But I've got a family here that just moved back from Florida recently. They live in West Ashley, so tell me your name real quick.
Kate.
Kate, okay, so how are you all feeling about the storm? You're not planning to evacuate, is that right?
We're not planning on evacuating. We think it's going to be a storm, but nothing serious here, at least.
Now, you said you lived here 2 years ago during Hurricane Matthew, right?
South Florida.
Oh, that was in South Florida.
That was in South
and that's when you
Florida.
had this baby.
I had him during the hurricane in South Florida. So he's the Hurricane Matthew baby.
You were literally holding a Hurricane Matthew baby.
Yes, driving right through it. We evacuated Irma to come here, which was probably dumb in hindsight. So we're not too scared of this hurricane.
You got 4 total children. So what's your name?
My name's Sloan.
Sloan, okay. So you've lived through hurricanes. How are you feeling about this storm?
Pretty excited. Excited.
Excited. Well, okay, all right. So you're not afraid?
Not afraid.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you all for talking to us. Please be safe.
All right, we will. Thank you.
All right, so that's kind of what we're talking about this morning. We've got a lot of people that are feeling pretty confident ahead of this storm, despite scenes like this, despite all these homes boarded up. And, you know, we've got people walking their dogs along the battery, people saying, I'm not going to evacuate. I'm just going to be here and stick this storm out. So fingers crossed everyone makes smart decisions and is well prepared as the storm makes landfall here in the next day or so and starts kind of curving back around and heading our way. We'll really see what those effects end up doing to the low country. But we're live downtown along the battery, guys. I'll get it back to you.
All right, Brody, thank you. Well, runways out at Charleston International are closed. The Aviation Authority closed them overnight. CEO Paul Campbell made the decision with Joint Base Charleston in mind. Air Force leaders evacuated emergency personnel Wednesday, and Campbell says he doesn't want to risk anyone's life.
Safety is our #1 priority on anything that we do at the airport. And if we can't provide the fire and rescue services, we're not going to have aircraft coming in. I understand why the Air Force is doing it. They're protecting their personnel. They're following the governor's order.
Campbell expects runways to reopen as early as Saturday morning.
Commercial traffic at the ports have been suspended. Coast Guard moved to port condition Yankee Wednesday. That means projected winds too strong to continue shipyard work. Most ships left the port terminals yesterday. Coast Guard officials advise that boaters also stay off the waterways until Florence passes.
CARTA has suspended its regular service ahead of Hurricane Florence. Limited emergency evacuation services will be available again today on the peninsula. Riders will be taken to the Charleston County Public Service Building, and from there, they'll be transported to emergency shelters.
President Trump says the government is ready for Hurricane Florence. He's also getting backlash on his administration's response to Hurricane Maria. ABC's Janae Norman has more.
F-22s hitting the sky, Apache helicopters being relocated. It's all part of how the federal government is preparing ahead of Hurricane Florence.
First responders, law enforcement, and FEMA, and they're all ready.
President Trump with this warning.
Get out of its way. Don't play games with it. It's a big one. It's called Mother Nature. You never know, but we know.
As the president stands ready to face whatever Hurricane Florence brings, he's still facing backlash for touting his handling of devastating Hurricane Maria, insisting his administration did an unappreciated great job in Puerto Rico and calling the mayor totally incompetent.
Puerto Rico was an incredible, unsung success.
Maria killed nearly 3,000 people, making it one of the deadliest hurricanes in modern American history. And there's growing controversy surrounding the response. Images of hundreds of pallets of water left to rot in the island's sun going viral. That water, purchased by FEMA, never made it to hurricane victims. The mayor of San Juan telling ABC News he never got it. He never will.
Oops, he did it again. Here he goes again. You know, he doesn't understand that this isn't about him and about his ego.
Between South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, more than 6,000 National Guardsmen have been activated ahead of Hurricane Florence. More are on standby, and Coast Guard search and rescue helicopters have been moved to Savannah, Georgia, in preparation. Janae Norman, ABC News, Washington.
Well, we still have some pretty quiet conditions out there right now. Temperatures today are still going to be warm, upper 80s, clouding up though, and the winds are starting to pick up. I'll let you know when we could experience tropical storm force winds. That's coming up. Take a live look outside right now from our Georgetown injury lawyer. Skyview Network showing great skies out there over Edisto and a very high tide. So we talk about storm surge, we talk about coastal flooding, and we're seeing the impacts of a very turbulent water right now. Look how high that tide is there on Edisto, and we have not even seen a drop of rain yet here in Charleston from the storm. So the clouds are rolling in, the winds are starting to pick up, and those coastal impacts have been happening for days. So with a hurricane off our coastline, we're going to see excessively high tides here over the next several days, just that push of water onshore. So our high tide today is coming here shortly at 11:38, the one at 11:47 this evening as well. So coastal flooding is a major concern right now. Now, as we go through the next few days, we're going to see flooding concerns in other areas. So freshwater flooding is going to be a huge concern with the rain that's going to fall. So we'll keep a close eye on those high tides, especially as we go through the weekend. Hurricane watch still in effect for the area. We are under that hurricane watch, but areas to our north under a hurricane warning. The reason, there it is right there. Hurricane Florence, a Category 2 hurricane, making its approach now towards North Carolina, slowing down. So rainfall is going to be dumping over a huge portion of North Carolina here to most of the day today, and then potentially into South Carolina going into tonight and tomorrow. Tornado watch in effect for a portion of North Carolina as well. The reason for that, it's that side of the hurricane, the friction with land, the interaction can spin up some tornadoes. We are not very worried about tornadoes. In fact, storm surge and tornadoes lower on our impact list. The winds and the rain are certainly going to be the big impacts for Charleston. Now, there's some drier air working in there. It doesn't really mean much. We're still looking at the same intensity here at landfall. Just something to note. A little bit more structure to the eye right now as well. We've seen some changes in intensity, but we are expecting a landfalling Category 2 hurricane at this point somewhere along the coast of North Carolina. I want to show you two computer models and still tell you why we can't exactly pinpoint those impacts for Charleston quite yet, or know that when we do, that they are going to be kind of fluid and they could be changing a little bit. So here's our European computer model. This guy's been causing some panic over the past few days. This is why. It has it moving onshore near Wilmington, but then after that, and this is Friday afternoon, has it moving down the coast and impacting Charleston with that center of circulation. So this is through the weekend, very slowly moving down the coastline. So that's the European computer model. The other computer models are showing a different story. So I also want to show you our American computer model, the GFS. This one following more closely with what the Hurricane Center is showing as well. Moving onshore here tonight or early tomorrow morning as a Category 2 hurricane, and then continuing to move west, but then gently moving southwest through South Carolina. So that would still mean impacts for us, but not quite as big as that European model would. Either way, I think we should be prepared for major impacts here in the low country, and depending on where you live, they're going to be a little bit different. Obviously, the biggest impacts are going to be north. So areas like Georgetown County, Horry County, where the hurricane force winds are going to be very likely. Heavy rain as well. Storm surge could be an issue there as well, about 2 to 5 feet. Now heading down into Charleston County, Berkeley County, Dorchester County, we're talking about tropical storm force winds. Still nothing to mess with out there. We're talking 39-mile-per-hour sustained winds or higher. Heavy rain, certainly a possibility that would come a little bit later. Storm surge could be 1 to 3 feet, so not as much of a concern with that storm surge. And then the farther south you go, the less those impacts. Tropical storm force winds are possible in some of those southern counties like Beaufort County, but storm surge is less than an issue, so not too worried about storm surge. Also, that heavy rain continuing through the weekend, pretty much the entire state looking at that possibility. All right, your extended forecast. Today, we're looking at some transition weather. So it's going to be a little bit cloudier. The winds are going to start to pick up, breezy by later today. Tomorrow, a windy day. We could see some rain moving in tomorrow as well, but really Saturday and Sunday are going to be the wet days. Now, we are going to see a good chance of rain as we go through the day on Saturday and Sunday, but the winds will start to calm down later in the weekend. That wind really starting up early and then finishing up with the rain going through the end of the weekend. Early next week, though, a huge improvement out there. We'll start to see more sunshine and a return to more summer-like air.
All right, Emily, thank you. Well, waffles are doing more than filling stomachs this morning. The useful data collected from the popular breakfast spot and what happens once the stove top gets cut off.
Now to some lighter news on Florence. Check out this Colleton County youngster not letting the storm ruin a special day for him. The little guy just turned 3 yesterday. So firefighters at a local shelter decided to throw him a party. As you can see, they give him some own fire hat, even some toys.
Well, Fat Southern Kitchen, if you're going to be hungry, says it'll remain open through the duration of Hurricane Florence. The location is at Tanger Outlets in North Charleston. Workers say they're extending store hours and offering deals on meals. Delivery to shelters, hotels, and homes are also available.
Waffle House heads, they're planning for the worst. They activated their storm center earlier this week. In case you didn't know, there's a thing called the Waffle House Index. That's a tool used by FEMA. It basically determines how badly an area has been affected by natural disasters. If the Waffle House is open, that's good. If it's closed, that's bad.
Well, we're the place people come to throughout the year after football games, after driving in the middle of the night, getting up early in the morning. So people are relying on us to be there all the time. So I think after a storm, they're really looking to us to be there to help them out because they're used to us being there the rest of the year.
Waffle House has 3 statuses. You just saw green, yellow, red. Green means everything's normal. Yellow means the grease is heating up, which puts the restaurant into storm mode. Limited menu, so be careful. Red means no waffles for you.
That's a sad day. Now to a live look outside. It's the calm before the storm. That's up there in the North Carolina coast. One last look at Hurricane Florence's track right after this break.
right, take a live look outside right now. This is Myrtle Beach. Still seeing some sun shining out there and some surfers perhaps out enjoying those waves. Some rough seas out there though. And Myrtle Beach certainly going to get the brunt of some of the impacts there from Florence as far as the state of South Carolina. All right, let's take a look right now at the latest. This is our brand new update from the Hurricane Center. The 11 a.m. update. It's not even 11 a.m. yet, so we did get a little bit early. There's been a little bit of weakening out there. In fact, Florence, the wind's now down to 105 miles per hour. That's still pretty strong though, and it's still huge, but it's starting to interact with land now. So those outer bands interacting with land, we're seeing a little bit of dry air coming in just on that northeast side of, or northwest side rather, of the storm. It's 145 miles east-southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina at this time, and we are expecting a landfall somewhere around that area, and that will happen later tonight or early tomorrow morning. Now, the latest here on the track, there has been some change, and one of those being that it is a little bit slower. So this is something that is not necessarily good news. A slower track means a lot more rain. So if it's slowing down, it is going to cause a good amount of flooding, especially through portions of North Carolina and portions of South Carolina too. Now, it's expected to move onshore as a Category 2 hurricane. From there, it will weaken to a Category 1 or a tropical storm. But that'll be through the day on Saturday and into Sunday. It's expected to move through portions of South Carolina, perhaps the Midlands, perhaps the upstate. Still yet to be determined on that exact track once it moves inland, and where that track is will play a huge role in what the impacts are here in Charleston. But you can see we're barely in that cone at this point, but that does not mean we are impact free. In fact, we are looking at tropical storm force winds as a likely impact, and that'll happen as early as tomorrow, and then also rain coming in probably later tomorrow, or really more so Saturday and Sunday as this thing is slowing down. So we're keeping a close eye on that. That long-term track that loops it back through the mountains of North Carolina, potentially Tennessee and into West Virginia. Wow. So this could be something they're dealing with for a while and could cause flooding in some of those other states as well. Now, as far as watches and warnings, we have not seen any changes with that update, so we're still under a hurricane watch here. Hurricane warnings to our north, other areas inland under tropical storm watches and warnings. So Florence is under a tropical storm warning for Florence.
Yeah, just getting word of thousands of without power up in North Carolina as that storm roars ashore already. Wow. So
won't take long.
Yeah. We do thank you for tuning into our Hurricane Florence special. We'll be back on the air at noon with more updates.
Until then, you can download the ABC News 4 app for the latest news on Florence as well. We'll be back there now.
Have a blessed one.